We've already come so far with my Mark 1 Volkswagen Caddy. From cutting out rust to welding in new bits, it's all been done. But instantly I knew I wanted something more from this car. So we've completed the transformation of the interior with a new carpet and headliner, transformed the wheels and brakes, and to top it off, we fitted a 3.2 litre engine from an Audi TT. But there is still one more thing that we need to do, and that is getting the car road ready for its first MOT since it's been off-road. But let's start off with the simple stuff, and that means getting the headlights all wired up. At the moment they are too long, which means I need to shorten them down and make it all look neat. The first step is to trim the wires for the side light. After cutting them down, I could slide on the braided sleeve, which will give the wires a way cleaner look. To keep the sleeve secure, I used a heat gun along with some heat shrink. Next, I crimped on the appropriate terminals onto the wires to ensure a solid connection. With all of that complete, it was time to connect on the headlight plug. I opted to replace the old plug with a new one, as the old one started to get yellow. As I decided to replace the plug, the new wires have to be soldered together. After cutting down the wires for the new plug, I slipped the sleeve over the wires and used a lighter to help me seal the ends of the sleeve to stop it from fraying and keeping everything intact. To prevent water from entering the front panel, I installed a rubber grommet. Now that all of the wires are cut to the correct length, I attached the plugs to the terminals and connected everything securely. The last task was to wire up the front indicators. I repeated the same process, terminals first, then the plug. Once everything was in place, I plugged the indicator light and tucked the wires into the front panel. And here's the final result. Using the braided sleeve not only makes the wires look much cleaner, but it also adds a layer of protection. And the best part, everything is working perfectly. At least, I thought. So, the headlights are working all fine, but there's still one problem with the indicators. The indicator lights work fine when you press the hazard light switch, so if we go over to the front, you can see that both lights are lit up. But if we go back into the car, and then turn the hazard lights off, and then use the indicator stalk, you can see the light is just green. Then if we go over back to the front, nothing is on. So let me do some investigating and see what the problem is. The first place to check for any issues is the fuse box. I'm using a multimeter to check if any of the fuses are blown. A car's fuse acts like a safety switch. It allows electricity to flow normally, but blows or breaks if there's too much current. This stops power to protect the car's wiring from any damage. Luckily, I discovered a blown 10 amp fuse for the indicator. After replacing it, everything started to work perfectly again. With the front lights working, the next thing that we need for an MOT is a horn. The original horn from the Caddy isn't working anymore, and luckily I kept the one from the Audi TT that we got the engine from. Now I even kept the plugs, which should make the install way cleaner. Now it's just a case of bolting up this bracket, getting the horn bolted up, and then sorting out the wiring. I'm starting by mounting the horn bracket using the existing bumper holes. After removing the bolt, I positioned the bracket and tightened it securely. Next, I attach the horn and connect up the plug. To keep the engine bay looking consistent and tidy, I'm adding braided sleeve to the wiper wires. Once the sleeve is in place, I can plug it into the motor. The final step is installing the windscreen wipers. Good wipers are essential for passing the MOT. Now we can move on to the safety. The Caddy has no safety features at all except from the seat belts. No airbags or anything like that. I've given the seat belts a good clean and painted up the bottom of the buckles. Something that I'm looking at for the next project is getting a plating kit for the bolts. But for now, these will do the job just fine. First, I'm installing the retractor. I'm using clips to hold the belt into place and prevent it from retracting back. Next, I secure the anchor on the B-pillar and then clip on the cover. And then I can tighten down the anchor on the floor and add the bolt cap. After completing this, I repeated the process on the driver's side. It's crucial to ensure everything is done correctly and all of the bolts are securely tightened, as this is what's going to be holding you into your seat. Now we've handled the safety, I need somewhere to sit. My seats are currently being retrimmed and I can't wait to show you guys. So I've got these until mine are done. The first thing that we need to do is get the bases all painted up so it blends underneath the seat and it will stop it from rusting. These seat bases are made from laser cut steel, so to prevent it from rusting, I start by applying 2 coats of acid etch primer. Once the primer was dry, I could then apply some satin black paint for a sleek finish. I'm also repainting the seat buckles to match. With everything painted, it's time to install them into the car. Each seat base attaches with 2 bolts on either side. I could then get the first bolt in, then the second bolt, and then lastly attaching the seat belt. And then the final bit to go in is a bolt at the front to lock it all into place. There are various seat bases available online, and depending on your setup, you might need a different type. I've noticed that these seat bases tend to position the seat quite low. So if you're tall, these are perfect for you. But for me, I might have to figure out a way to raise them up a bit. For the seat installation, I first attach the slider to the seat, and then bolt on the handle. The last thing to do is tighten everything up. Finding the right sliders took some effort. I had to modify them slightly by cutting and extending the handle to fit the wider mounting points. Sometimes when modifying cars, off-the-shelf parts aren't always available or they're too costly, so you need to get creative. It's all a part of finding practical solutions when working on a custom build. With the sliders attached to the seats and the bases secured into the car, I could finally install the seats. It took a bit of fiddling to get the bolts into place due to the tight space under and behind the seats, but we managed to get it done in the end. I'm fortunate to have a spare set of seats to use for now, and I think they don't look too bad. I'm really excited to reveal the colours that I've chosen for the actual seats that will be going in, so make sure you subscribed so you don't miss that. In the UK, we need a number plate or license plate for the front of the car. The original plate mount wasn't looking its best, so I stripped off all of the old paint. Once it was back to metal, I gave it a quick coat of the same primer I used on the seat bases and then a coat of satin black. Once that was all done, I attached it to the front of the bumper. In one of the previous episodes, I asked you guys if I should attempt to make an exhaust or get a custom one made. After adding up all of the cost, I decided to just buy an off-the-shelf kit. I chose a stainless steel exhaust for its durability and long-lasting performance. Stainless steel is known for its strength and resistant to rust and corrosion, even if it gets scratched. It also maintains a fresh appearance over time. The exhaust has a 2.5-inch diameter, which should provide enough flow for the exhaust gases. I went with a baller back box, which is known to give the car a deeper, more refined sound. The kit comes with a few bits: the front section with a resonator, the muffler, a connector piece, and the rear section. It also comes with these mounts and clamps, and what's cool about these, you can adjust them to however you want, as these are what hold the exhaust to the car. And the last bits that come with it are new rubbers for the hangers, some gaskets, and some hardware. I'm so excited to hear it, so let's get it on. The first part of the exhaust to go on is the connector pipe. Instead of unplugging the O2 sensor, I simply twisted the pipe to avoid any hassles. Next, I installed the gasket onto the downpipe and slightly tightened the bolts just in case I needed to adjust the pipe later. I placed the box underneath the exhaust to support it until I could get the rubber hangers installed. This way, I avoided putting stress on the downpipe. Next, we slid the center section of the exhaust onto the connector pipe. We used the provided U-clamp to hold it into place, but I didn't fully tighten it up just in case I needed to rotate it later. Since access will be limited once the back box is installed, I attached the rubber hangers first. Then I slid on the rear silencer and installed the hooks for the hanger to support the exhaust. Finally, the last exhaust section was installed at the rear. Once it was into place, I connected the 2 hangers onto the clamps to secure everything into place. I did consider building the exhaust myself or getting a custom one made, but the cost for the DIY project was quite high. A custom exhaust is also pricey, especially when factoring the transportation of the Caddy to the workshop. So, an off-the-shelf solution turned out to be the perfect choice for me, and it was quite easy to fit. Just a bit of a struggle doing it on jack stands. And the last thing to do is remove this. Before I show you how it sounds, there's still one more thing that I want to do to the exterior which should make it look even better. I've got a set of chrome waistline trims, 3 for each side, and I also got some chrome for the front grille. There's also a chrome strip that goes along the lower section, but unfortunately there's none in stock at the moment, so I'll make sure I get one of them. For now, I'll just get these ones on. Whether you're restoring a vintage gem or just need a few parts to keep your daily driver in top shape, Heritage Parts Centre is the place to go. And here's something special just for you. They're offering 10% off your next purchase. Just use code ZAX GAR10 at the checkout. Now, let's get back to the video. The waistline trims are secured in with plastic clips. The first step is to push the clips into the holes in the doors and the wings. There's a pin on each clip that needs to be pushed in to lock them into place. My dad uses a piece of wood to press the clips, making sure they don't bend. As you can see here, the pin is now flush with the clip. Some of the pins were a bit difficult to push in, so with a light tap of the hammer, they went in just fine. Once all of the clips were in, I lined up the trims and snapped them into place. On the rear section of the Caddy, there are no pre-drilled holes. I considered drilling some holes for the clips, but in the end, I decided to just use double-sided tape to hold the trim into place. Adding these chrome trims may seem like a subtle modification, but they really change the overall appearance of the car. It's a small detail that makes a big difference, giving the exterior a cleaner, more refined look. Plus, it keeps that classic timeless feel, which is exactly what I was going for with this build. And I'm happy to say I think that looks amazing. I didn't fit the front grille trim as I ordered the incorrect one, but I'll get the right one sorted. Now we should be ready for the MOT. I did plan to do it in this episode, but I couldn't book a slot in time, so fingers crossed I can get it sorted for next time. And as I promised, here's how the exhaust sounds. Make sure you drop a comment down below of what you think of it. And once the engine was warmed up, I could give it a rev. So that's it. If you enjoyed watching, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. There's still a few mods that I have for the Caddy, so make sure you don't miss out. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.